Yeah, here we go. Hey, everybody, welcome. We have a couple of panelists that are going to be on tonight, and we've got an exciting topic. So I want you to get your refreshments of the evening, whether they are alcoholic or non-alcoholic. You know how it goes. If it is Wednesday, it is blockchain day. Welcome to Blockchain Chat. I see I got my partner here, Mr. Eric Spence, in the building.
That's right. Hey.
Hello, and Miss Talisha is coming on. Good evening.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you
Okay.
just fine. So we're going to give people another minute to hop on board here. We've got a great topic for this evening. And we want to thank everybody for adjusting for the time with us. Cherie was whipped at 8 o'clock starting, so we are going to test doing this a half hour earlier. I get up super early in the morning to work out and do all of that stuff, so you know, I'm not a night owl. So how has your week been, Talisha?
It's been crazy, but I didn't expect anything less. So it's doing what I anticipated it to be.
Yeah. I was out of town for the last couple of days myself doing some
Yeah. How did it go?
clients. I'm sorry?
How did it go?
Oh, it went well, actually.
Okay.
So for those of you who are out there listening on Facebook and Zoom, I write business plans for a living, and I'm helping 3 clients right now raise capital. So all of them are like, you know, hey, we need this, we need that. I was traveling with one. And tomorrow I have another one who is going in to do a pitch. So today's been crazy. Getting him the final changes that he needs to go and pitch OPIC. And yeah, so my job is fun, I have to admit. Eric, how are you doing?
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good.
Good.
That was it. So, yeah, that's it. So everything's going pretty good. We've had kind of a, you know, how fall is and how fourth quarter is. It's become this big dump, this big rush, you know, towards a lot of things that maybe were, you know, everybody's trying to get a lot of stuff done in a short period of time. So,
Yeah.
you know, but
Everybody's thinking try to get it done before November 15th. So yeah, because afterwards, some people are just like, I'm done for the year.
Yeah, it's so true.
Even though the funny thing is, in my business, that's the time when I start cranking up, is like between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Like people are like, oh, I need 2020 stuff. So yeah. Well, we're going to get started tonight because we want to respect everybody's time. We have a great conversation this evening talking about failure and blockchain failure and technology failure. And I usually get inspired by articles that I read that I publish either on the Facebook group or I publish in our knowledge center within Flock. So there was an article that I read and it got me to really thinking about failure. And I'm going to show that to you tonight, as well as talk about a couple of other things. And the biggest thing that we do in this group is talk about how we as Black people can take advantage of certain things in these economies and markets. So before I do that, a couple of announcements. First of all, welcome to Black Blockchain Consultants to everybody. Our mission is to do 4 things within the organization. Number 1 is introduce you to different blockchain jobs that are available. We just posted an article a couple of days ago with 7 blockchain jobs. One of them is coding, the other 6 are not. So if you are not a coder, that doesn't matter. There are plenty of blockchain jobs out there. The second thing that we do is introduce you to blockchain businesses that you can start and grow. Whether you want a little 6-figure consulting company or a 7 or 8-figure platform, this is the place to learn about different opportunities that are available. Number 3, investments that you can make, whether you want to invest money into a project, then we talk about, you know, what's happening within blockchain so that you can be a smarter investor, or whether you want to invest time. If somebody approaches you and say, hey, will you be on our board? Will you be on our team? How do you evaluate those opportunities from a what's happening in blockchain point of view? Right. And then the fourth thing we focus on is generational wealth. That's something I'm very big on. In fact, you can see, I'm gonna sit here, Black entrepreneur, I got my shirt on tonight. So yes, that's what we do around here. If you want to join Black Blockchain Consultants, where we have deeper conversations and we have opportunities for you to make money within the group, then you can go to blackblockchainconsultants.com and select the membership tab, get all the benefits. It's $100 a year, and that just helps us with administrative costs. Also, Eric, would you tell everybody about the 21st Century Fundraising Virtual Conference that we have coming up?
Yes, we are going to have a conference. It's going to be December the 3rd. We have kind of pushed that date back so we can, just accommodate a few things internally with all of us. But we have some platforms lined up. We have some great speakers lined up. I'm really impressed. I'm really excited to hear from these platforms and speakers, just their take on what they're seeing. Like, the best thing about it is we're at the very edge of technological transformation. So this is great hearing directly from the people that are there too and what they're seeing. And that's what I want to draw from them as we have these interviews, is to ask them the questions that I think all of us would like to hear from them. So, and one of the things too, I think is really excellent is people are very open, because they do want to see mass adoption take place. So they're very open to making these connections, having these discussions, and I'm just really excited to be able to deliver it for the entire group. So looking forward to it.
And we're not just talking about blockchain platforms with this virtual conference. We're also having people come in just to talk about opportunity zones, crowdfunding. So whether you have friends and family that want to raise money next year, or you're looking long-term, one of the biggest things that I hear from Black entrepreneurs is how difficult it is for us to raise money. And some of that has to do with racism. And then some of it has to do with the fact that we're not prepared. And some of it has to do with the fact that we don't own our own platforms and really galvanize. So I'm looking for the person to say, hey, we're going to put this blockchain platform together to invest in our own technology projects. That has been my prayer. You all know I say we get 10,000 Black people that could put $100 in each. That's $1 million that we can put into our own technologies. And then we don't have to worry about going and asking anybody for money. Well, for the first round, let's just say. So, that's a vision that I have, and I would love to see somebody take that up. A couple other announcements before we get started with the lesson of the day. We in 2020 are having this initiative we're calling 20 cities in 2020. I just got a call yesterday from someone in Los Angeles that wants to put something together there. So I'm probably going to reach out to Audrey and anybody else in Los Angeles that wants to have a meetup there. We're definitely going to be doing something in the DMV area. That's DC, Maryland, and Virginia. Talisha and I are going to put something together here. If you live in a city and you want Black Blockchain Consultants to come to your city, and you can find a place and get a group of people together to talk about blockchain, then let us know. Reach out to me at info@blackblockchainconsultants.com, because our mission is to educate 1 million Black people with blockchain. We want to be, a force to be reckoned with within the blockchain industry. So please help us reach our 20 cities. And Jeffrey is saying LA. So yes, so I'll be in LA. Jeffrey, if you're able to help as well, galvanize people, then please reach out to me. The final thing is Atlanta. We are having our annual conference in Atlanta, February 16th and 17th of 2020. Please ask your bosses for your time off now. And on Sunday, we're going to tokenize an asset. We're going to tokenize a piece of Black art. Eric is going to be leading that up. He's super excited about that.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
a
I
little
am super
scared
excited
too.
about
That's okay.
Yeah, like you can discern that obviously. But hey, we're just gonna do it.
We're just gonna do it. Yeah, and like it's gonna be something like $20. Everybody put $1 in, so that we can really get the experience of what it's like to tokenize something. And all of us say we own this piece of art. So it's not gonna be anything crazy. And then on Monday, Monday, February 17th, 2020, we do have Chris McFarlane, who is the CEO of Patient Tory, as our keynote speaker. We're going to have other things happening. Tawana Rivers is leading the conference. So if you want to be on that committee to talk about, what's going to happen at the conference and all of that, the breakout sessions we're going to have, et cetera, then you can do that. Reach out to Tawana on Flock. That's if you're a BBC member. So Talisha or Eric, do you have any other announcements?
I do not.
Yeah, me either.
Okay, I see a couple of hands raised. If you meant to raise your hand, meaning you want to be on the panel, because this is open panel, we let anybody come on. So just put in the chat that you meant to have your hand raised and you want to be on the panel. Otherwise, I'm not going to put you on the panel because I've had people say they didn't mean to do it before. Okay, so you guys ready for the topic of the day, Talisha and Eric?
Yes,
ma'am.
All right. All righty then. And Corey, I see you. Hello, how you doing? Thank you so much for joining us tonight. So I'm going to share, hold on a second. I want to be here. I'm going to share my screen now. And can everybody see the article?
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what I want to do, Talisha and Eric, usually I try to bring you guys in intermittently, but what I'd like to do tonight is talk for about 15 minutes and kind of lay a foundation, and then have us come together and have a conversation about everything, because it's all going to flow together if the two of you don't mind tonight.
Cool. Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. All right, everybody. So this is going to be great. I suggest if you can get your pens and papers out, or watch the replay if you need to do that, and have some notes, because there's going to be a couple of good lessons that come from tonight. So the topic of this evening is about blockchain failure. And it started off with me reading this article here, or actually just the subject, which you can see. Ethereum founders admit blockchain never designed for scalability. Now, you may ask, if you're new to our conversations, what does this, have to do with failure? Well, scalability is how we get a lot of people on board. For the past couple of weeks, we've been talking about interoperability, and we've been talking about how blockchain becomes mainstream. And the Ethereum founders are saying that blockchain is never designed for scalability. And without scalability, blockchain can't go mainstream. Now, they've been working, when I say they, I mean blockchain coders have been working on this issue. However, they are admitting an early failure with this. And Vitalik Buterin and Joseph Lubin are huge within the blockchain community. They have come under increasing scrutiny after admitting that the Ethereum blockchain, which for those of you who don't know, that is the most used blockchain coding system that's out there. So after admitting the Ethereum blockchain was never designed for scalability. So in the clip, the interviewer asked both individuals if they were aware that the Ethereum blockchain was not scalable at the time it was created. Lubin says explicitly, "We knew it wasn't going to be scalable for sure," and Buterin nods in affirmation. Ooh, problems from the start. The notion of scalability has been something of a pariah for the Ethereum blockchain since its founding. The original ICO documents contain promises of building scalable apps on the chain, but recent attempts and slow transaction times have left users disgruntled. Additionally, the original ICO documents were removed from public view, though digital copies have been saved. But we know once you put something on the internet, you can never take it off. The notion that early promises of scalability were false has left users with a somewhat jaded perspective about the genuine capabilities of the blockchain. Many, however, have defended the founders, suggesting that the plan was always to scale later in the development. Intention or accident. The suggestion that the Ethereum blockchain was never designed to scale suggests that the founders oversold its capabilities from the start. In other words, they were allegedly deceptive about what the blockchain could accomplish. While a large number of ICOs flocked to the chain to issue their tokens, the foundation was apparently fully aware that there was no scalability possible, creating questions as to whether this was the intention of the founders or simply a conclusion reached by accident. And then they're talking here about upgrades to come. So they have upgrade announcements with assurances that scalability is possible. The Ethereum Foundation has promised that the switch from proof of work to proof of stake would provide needed bandwidth. However, the earlier promises of scalability have proven untrue. And so these newly minted offerings are ringing untrustworthy. Twitter has been ablaze with commentary on the lack of clear direction from the founders from the start. And then the author asked the question, do you think the Ethereum blockchain scalability issue is an Achilles heel that will eventually bring the project down? Or will the new upgrades provide the necessary scalability the chain is missing? So that, again, was the reason why I came up with tonight's topic, because we talk a lot about the great things that are happening within blockchain, but I also want to have the other discussion as well, some of the failures that's happening. So then this, on the same day that I was doing research, this article came up with a blockchain booking venture that failed as well. This is a Hong Kong blockchain tech company that ended up failing. They launched in July 2018. It was called 300 Qubits, was recognized as one of the first to apply blockchain technologies in shipping. When using the system, both carriers and shippers were careful about their commitment, says the company. Nearly all except one shipment where booking deposits were placed were executed according to the booking. However, this company ended up failing, and I can't remember why. Many of the core blockchain features, e.g. immutability and anonymity, are either not intuitive or unappealing to the business users. So they were saying different reasons that it failed. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right. I don't know what happened with my audio. Okay, but anyway, so this was one of the failures, and we're going to see a lot of blockchain failures before we start seeing the successes. And got me to thinking about some of the other failures that we've seen within history. So now, Eric and Talisha, this is going to be one of the areas where you can kind of chime in here. So this is the 20 most successful technology failures of all time, because failure is not new to blockchain. Every time there's a technology cycle, we see failure within it. So within the chat, if you're on Facebook, if you're in Zoom, let me know if you remember these failures. Napster.
Yes.
BlackBerry.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I'm going to just
AOL.
put that caveat in there is like, are we saying, what are we defining as a failure?
See, that's where I'm going to go to with you, Talisha. But go ahead, Sheree.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so then hold that thought, Talisha, and let's
Most
come back
definitely.
to that because this is part of the entire discussion. So AOL, the Palm Pilot, Betamax, even VHS these days is gone. GMEV1, I don't even remember what this is. It looks like there's electricity there. It looks like it was maybe the first electric car. Netscape, Windows 8. Again, let us know if you remember these. MySpace, Alta Vista, Google Glass, Dreamcast. I don't even remember. I don't know what that is.
Yes, it's a game
Looks like
console. It's a gaming
game
console.
I'd never, yeah. Motorola. Okay, so Motorola failed, but the cell phone didn't. So, you know, we'll also break this out between what industries failed versus just what products failed. The Segway, QR codes. I remember people trying to make that the craze. Pebble, I don't even know what that is. Looks like
it's a wearable device.
Looks like, yeah, looks like a pre-wearable device. The Daily.
Yes.
MapQuest.
Yes.
Virtual Boy.
Mm-hmm.
And TiVo.
Yes.
So these are the top 20. Let me know in the chat on Facebook which ones were either your favorites or which ones you missed, et cetera, et cetera. So final thing I want to show you before I toss it over to my panel is the lessons we can learn from failure, because one of the reasons why I like that Time magazine article, and I didn't just pick internet websites, even though there were like, you know, the most failed internet websites. I really wanted to show different types of technology so that you could see as the internet came into fruition, because most of those technologies were from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. As the internet came into fruition and modern technology came in, some of those were hot for a while and then gone. And some of those never really never really caught on as well. I think some of the lessons we can learn is based on this graph that I have in front of you. And it's called the Innovation Adoption Cycle. It's Rogers Bell Curve. And at the very beginning, you'll see innovators. So within the blockchain industry, innovators were probably those people that came up until I would say about 2014, right? Those were the people that were diehard, Silk Road people, or people that were the guy that used 10 Bitcoins to buy the pizza all those years ago, and now if he held on to those Bitcoins, they'd be worth however many dollars. Those types of people are the innovators. I believe we're part of the early adopters. We're part of this second wave here. Then you have the early majority, the late majority, and the laggards. One of the things we learn about technology, and this is, and Eric and Talisha, you can let me know if you think I'm incorrect here. Every type of technology that comes out, if you really start making, or really start putting a lot of money into products during the innovator stage, you typically lose out unless you have a lot of money where you can hang on for a long time. If you try to invest money with the late majority or start your products with the late majority, you typically don't make as much money. However, if you start producing your products and gain traction during early adoption, an early majority stage, that's when you make money with technology. So we want to start thinking about, one of the lessons that we can learn today is with regards to figuring out at this point in our blockchain career, while we're still in the early adoption phase, what part of blockchain do you want to become an expert at and make money with? So that's number one. Number two is a lesson to learn is think about big trends versus individual technologies. So I'm going to use the Betamax, for example. If you were all in with the Betamax, if you put every last dollar into the Betamax and it failed, then you would have lost all your money, or you would have joined a losing team. However, if you think about it in terms of the future of entertainment, in terms of people didn't want to have to sit at home in order to watch JR get shot on Dallas. They wanted to, go out and have fun with their friends and come see it later on. Well, then you're looking at industry trends. With the same thing with blockchain, I believe that maybe we want to think bigger in terms of how data is going to be captured and managed and moved around versus even just blockchain and versus just an individual blockchain platform. Again, Talisha and Eric, you guys can let me know what you think about that. The third thing that I have on my list is it's important for us to stay 2 to 3 years ahead of trends, but not to jump in too early when it comes to putting in our money or considerable amounts of time with the trends. Unless you have a large war chest or you're working with a company that has a large war chest. Number 4 is, I think it's important for us to be known by everybody within either the industry or within a certain segment of the industry. So for example, Talisha's into healthcare and blockchain. So who are the top 10 influencers that she should know? And she should position herself to be known by all 10 of those influencers. One of the reasons why I have so many opportunities is because I have been in, networking and in certain rooms with people, and people like me, they say, oh, Cherie's smart. She's going to do, whatever she promises to do. We want her on our team. I get more opportunities than I have time. And you want to be in the same position, but you can't do that if you're not in the room. If people don't know who you are and don't know your competency. So, and then the final thing I will say is we shouldn't be afraid to fail. So sometimes we as Black people are afraid to fail. And I'm not saying go spend all your money on everything. Go spend all your money on one specific platform or anything like that. However, failure is a part of technology, and it's a part of growing just as business people or as professionals. So my final lesson is we shouldn't be afraid to fail. However, I have this thing, I'm cheap. So I like to put as little money in as possible to discover if I'm going to fail, before I really commit to a lot of time or a lot of money in any specific project or platform or anything like that. So that's my presentation for the day. And I'm going to hand it over to Eric and Talisha to, anything that I've said that has struck your fancy, jump in.
I'll start. I would say, again, the definition of failure is really important here in the sense of what are we classifying as a failure? Because many of the things that were demonstrated there, specifically Napster, AOL, have a level of existence today. Even BlackBerry, while they don't make phones per se, they have a large cybersecurity project going on right now that's competing very well in the industry right now. And that becomes the issue with, just labeling something as a, did it fail or did it just set the precedent? And that it also has a life cycle of specifically in software development, we have what's called a software development lifecycle. So things come and go, and depending on the coding that's available to us, as well as like software and hardware, both go through iteration stages. So there's a thing that basically that curve can also be applied to when how software is performing or how technology is actually progressing. And at certain points, like I said, Napster set a whole new precedent of how we do certain things. And lo and behold, we have iTunes. But, you know, people can say who started what, and MySpace is, again, still in existence today. It may not be as popular as Facebook, but Facebook was really designed for a singular purpose, for a single university. And now it supports over 1 billion plus users a day. It wasn't scalable when it was created. It gained scalability because it had to function that way. And so those kind of things, like, I mean, going through this, it's a great discussion. And as a person who likes software, specifically matching software with the technology and the advances that we have to go through, this is something that we really need to consider of where's it going, and what is the capacity now versus what the capacity will be in a future state.
Okay. I'm gonna, you know, pretty much piggyback right on, like right behind Talisha and what she said, because this is my take. Let me ask you: have you ever heard of the name Gary Kildall? Have you ever heard that name?
No.
Yes.
Okay, that's Talisha. You heard that name, and you know
Yes.
exactly where I'm going with this.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, see, there you go. See, Gary Kildall, when the personal computer boom was happening in the early 80s, IBM was looking to roll out with their personal computer, okay? They went to Gary Kildall, who was supposed to develop in the software for it. But for him, he just fought with them tooth and nail. He had major issues with their rollout and the way that their products were, and he wouldn't do it, and he just wouldn't comply, and he had massive issues with them. So they went to another young tech entrepreneur by the name of Bill Gates. Mm-hmm. The story ends there, you know, and that was kind of the point. And this is why I'm saying this even when I look at Ethereum. Well, yeah, people can go, you know, and honestly, I watched that interview. I got a sense that the guy's kind of trying to needle them a little bit. He's kind of trying to pin them down a little bit. First of all, let's just understand one thing. I think Vitalik Buterin, I think he was like, what, 19?
Yeah, he was super young. Yes.
Yeah, just a whiz kid, you know, when he started it. So yeah, did he see this? First of all, let me tell you something. Him and Joseph Lubin, no way that they see 2017 and all of these ICOs happen. So that impacted and changed a lot of their outlook. This is something why I talk about us always being in the space, because we bring our own creativity or our own unique viewpoint into the space itself. They didn't see CryptoKitties. Remember, it was CryptoKitties, not this other really high, you know, use case. It was CryptoKitties where you're able to create these digital, you know, cats on, you know, using the blockchain. They really really kind of clogged the system where they were like, oh my gosh, we have a problem here. Now, Ethereum's reach in the marketplace is so massive. I don't think anyone's going to be able to catch up to them at this point. They have so much brain power there that right now, Ethereum 2.0 is going to launch in 2020. Mm-hmm. They are fixing a lot of the scaling issues. They're having side chains and other layer solutions in that. That's part of what you get when you step out and you get, you know, a lot of, you know, really smart people committing to your cause to really help out. Now, let's look on the other side too. And I'm just saying this, you know, if anyone if they're an investor in Cardano or something like that. But you may look at a Cardano, someone who's really like kind of, a blockchain is really taking their time when it's come for adoption. You know, if you listen to IOHK, he talks about how they've taken this academic approach where everything that they're doing, they want to make sure it's peer reviewed and that sort of thing. Well, that's great. Here's the point. When you're starting to get into the marketplace, I mean, this is what you have, you know, that happens. And, you know, now, you know, we look at, you know, Microsoft is using Ethereum. Ernst & Young is using Ethereum. I mean, these are massive corporations that have then worked in our using the technology, using the chain itself. So I kind of look at it and I kind of go, well, was it a failure? And I kind of bring with a Gary Kildall, someone who's going, no, no, IBM, no, wait for me. It needs to be done this way. I'm not going to do it right. That they said Bill Gates, when he delivered, and Talisha, correct me if I'm wrong, he delivered that software product. It was full of bugs.
It was, yeah, I even knew that.
300 bugs or
And
something
it's a
like that.
beta.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole point of iterative software. You're never going to get something that's fully developed. You have to move with it. And that's why most people are doing, agile methodologies at this point, is because you're just iterating every time you see it. And I think this is the best point, is that it wasn't developed with that in mind. Everything, this iteration that we're now seeing, was not what the intention of the software was, or the platform itself was not for that when it was created. So now that you do have these large corporations using it and truly in very specific cases that they're having to use it in, this is very different than what that initial software development was. So we're scaling based upon need now, rather than the true functionality of the software as well as the infrastructure. So there's a whole lot of, different things being thrown in the pot. So when you say what it does what it's supposed to do, yes, it does what it does. But now, does it have to do something else? Yes. And that's where you have to scale and iterate.
Yeah. See, that's a good point. See that I'm just saying, Sharice, that's the way I look at it. I don't look at it as I look at it like as a bit of Tetris here. So we started going in, we had to go that way, we want to go down a little bit, then we're going to go back over, now we're going up.
Well, yeah, and so success and failure is never a straight line. There's this meme that goes around, specifically on LinkedIn, I see it, where it's like success, and it's like it curves, and
Yes.
the line is squiggly, and it's all over the place, and it's messy. I think one of the big things with failure, and we are using that term loosely, is it did fail in the early version of Ethereum, did fail in something that was vital for mass adoption, and that was scalability. So, so Gary Kildall, you said that's his name?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So when we're considering teams to be a part of, because for the majority of us, we're not coders, right? But somebody may say, oh, Talisha, you're really smart. I want you on my board. Oh, Eric, you're really smart. I want you as my COO. How do you ascertain if somebody is failing forward and fixing the problem and moving versus someone who's Gary Kildall, who is saying, wait for me, and you wait so long that you end up with this perfect product that nobody is going to use? So one of the issues that we saw within that top 20 list is some of those products were popular at one point. In fact, some of those entrepreneurs sold out at the peak, and some of the founders and walked away gazillionaires, and others fell flat on their face from the start or early on. So I think this is very important, because we do talk in BBC about how to tell if you're investing your time in a project that's worthwhile or not. Your time or your money, but I'm going to say more so your time here, because that's most important. Or how to select the blockchain job. How do we know that that platform is failing forward versus something that sounds really cool, but maybe the people there don't have the wherewithal to fix its failures? And then I want to come back to one thing that Talisha said before I forget. She talked about how BlackBerry is still being used, and some of the products on that list are still being used. So how do we know if we take something like BlackBerry that at one point we thought was going to be mass adopted, yet they were smart enough to say, okay, mass adoption isn't going to work for us because the iPhone has come out and the smartphone is, so we're going to niche, and we're going to get rich from a super niche. So I'm kind of throwing all of that out because I think it's important for us to have these conversations from that kind of level,
Yes, I agree. And I think to answer that question is a really important question. There's two parts to that. So how do you know when somebody's willing to fail forward
Mhm.
is you see by their system processes and their methodologies. Are they able to articulate the failures or the things that aren't correct? Because people kind of hype up, oh, this is the greatest thing and it's going to be the be all end all. There are people who say, you know what, it's good for this. It could possibly be used for something else, but it's really going to be for this. And we're going to try to make this better. And we're going to do this, this, and that. So they have that ability to kind of talk about their product, not from a fix it all and from a utopic standpoint, but from a very realistic standpoint. And they also have it very modularized. And I think that goes into the second part. So if it, in totality it doesn't work, but do we still have viable pieces that we can kind of move around? That's what you're seeing here, because each of those technologies that you mentioned that were all failures, all are the basis of some other technologies. So we had the Betamax. Obviously, yes, that piece of software or that piece of product didn't work, but the technology that went into it was sold because it was separate from that. That was just the physical product and turned into something else. BlackBerry, I still have a BlackBerry Curve and Bold that I still own. They don't
You got
work,
the last
but
one, Felicia. You got the last one.
Yeah, I
I
was gonna
do.
say, do you
I
use
got
it too?
I don't use them. No, I just keep them. They're just there. But I remember they were a niche market because they were built for professionals only. Like everybody didn't have them. And that was the whole point. Not everybody kid had it wasn't a utopic kind of thing. It was truly, if you were a business professional, you had a BlackBerry, and the government still does
Well, I
use
know the
BlackBerries
government
because
does. Yeah.
right. So they have a specific niche market right now for if you have a personal phone, you have a BlackBerry if you work in the US government.
Mhm.
So I think these are the kind of things that we, again, the failure may not be from a global system adoption or being the true monopoly somewhere. But if you have a niche market and you're viable, your product still remains something that the market requires. And if it can be modularized, meaning that pieces of it can be actually utilized for some other purpose, then I think you know that you have something going for you.
Great. Eric?
Well, also too, just when we highlight that with BlackBerry, and it was funny because our parent company, they were primarily on the BlackBerry system before they changed over a couple of years ago. But this is, to be honest, one thing too with BlackBerry, and I used to have a BlackBerry, and honestly, yes, Felicia, it was for that exact same reason. It was primarily just for email, and it was just much easier to have the keys there. But here's the thing I'm going to say with that: BlackBerry was very late when everyone had started switching to touchscreen. BlackBerry was very late into just adopting that, you know, and that in and of itself. So I kind of bring that up where I say, well, one thing for someone is when the climate itself has changed, they're unwilling to recognize that the climate has changed. So they then want to stay crystallized in that one space that they initially. Now, listen, that can be good because this person won't be fair weather and then blown all over the place. They will be a foundational pillar. But at the same time, it probably helps that they're paired with someone who's pretty intuitive to say, hey, wait a minute, the climate has changed now. We need to start pivoting on that. You know, I think sometimes that is a failure. You know, I mean that can be a blind spot for a
Right.
lot of innovators and a
I
lot
agree.
of that they don't see that. So
Yeah.
And there's also that acknowledgement. I said, you know that the field is changing. So maybe you're not taking, you're not jumping all in, but you're at least aware. There are certain things that people are just like, nope, I'm not going to look around. We're going to keep our heads down and just do this because this is truly the future. When you see the future knocking at your door and you don't open it, that becomes very problematic. So you do have to be able to at least articulate and acknowledge that there's things going on and maybe even see how, again, this is where the modularization comes in, what part of your business has the potential to kind of go in that direction. And that's where I think you do need to be very malleable. And if you do have a rigid company that only wants to do one thing, only one way, that's how you know that may not be the best and optimal place for you, because we know things are changing very rapidly in the technology space. It has been, it's proven every time we look up, there's something new, something going on. And again, if you're not proactive, we know that quantum computing is coming. If you don't even take that into consideration, you're already behind. Even
Right,
though
which
it's
is why I
really ahead.
mentioned that, not just thinking about blockchain itself, which we are very much blockchain enthusiasts, but thinking about the future of data and
Right.
how data is going to be handled. And then you do think about machine learning and artificial intelligence and, blockchain and quantum computing and everything, and figuring out how these things are going to be working together. And if you have children, preparing them for jobs that don't even exist today.
Yes.
One of the biggest things that we can give our kids is the ability to think strategically. And unfortunately, I don't have children, but it's my understanding, it's something that's not really taught in school.
No,
it means you have to teach it to your kids, how to think strategically. This country, I'm turning a little political here, is going to be haves and have-nots. Even more than black and white, it's going to be have and have nots. And for all of our sakes, be a family of halves, because, right now, this is one of the greatest times in history for us to make a big impact and to position our families for 3, 4, 5 generations from now. Lisa's saying thinking independently is not taught in school. Yeah. So, and the kids need to be taught how to get jobs that aren't even, thought of today. How to learn. We even need to rethink how we learn new skills. So, yeah.
Yes.
What did you think of the bell curve? So, hadn't heard either of you mention that. Any thoughts with regards to the bell curve that I showed, or how we can use that for our betterment?
I think that the bell curve is very informative in the sense of knowing where you are as you currently look at your skill assessment, and you're still, where you are and what you have as your skill acquisitions. And then you can position yourself to kind of maneuver. And I do think that it's bilateral. I think always people are like, oh, I don't want to be on that downward slope, but sometimes you do, because there's opportunities. The laggards have a very hard time understanding and need education. Mm-hmm. So there's always the biggest opportunity for education is with those individuals who haven't jumped on and then are forced to. So there becomes a windfall for the people who know, because those people have to be educated. It's almost like a reevaluation of the workforce. So you don't want to be a laggard, you want to be prepared to address that laggard's needs.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. And the late adopters as well.
Right. That's a whole business. I mean, mm-hmm. There's people still that teach people how to use iPhones every day because people who don't know how to do that. Yes, that's a business.
Yes. My mother actually, so I'll tell a funny story. My mother needs help backing up her phone, Mm-hmm. She's like, she's got the hottest iPhone, and she's like, but I need to back up my pictures and my text messages and all of that stuff. And now we're starting to see these things actually being included in court cases and things like that. So now all of a sudden, you see with the late adopters and the laggards, the needs that they have, or the use cases for technology just changes so much. And Talisha, you're right about all the opportunities that come if we are early adopters teaching late adopters and teaching laggards.
Right. So. And I think there's always the other portion, again, being in the beginning, where the innovator may have come up with it. And this is, I think, specifically where BBC fits in, is that while people create because they are creative, it's not always apropos to a market. Just because you create something doesn't mean there's a market value for it. So being in that little slither of an early adopter or even a late adopter to really see like, oh, this is a great product, but we're going to use it this way, or this is your true market. You've created something great, but that's not what the market really needed. They need something that does this. So again, I think when you position yourself, you may not be the person who creates the biggest thing, but like when Facebook, I remember when Facebook came and how it was not a tool for marketers at all.
100%.
Right. That wasn't a place that people were like, oh my goodness, who would go there? And oh my God, it's just for kids. But when marketers got a hold of it, now it's the marketer's place to be. If you're not on Facebook, you know, you can't do it. And that was the same with any new technology. I remember Periscope was the same, very much in that same vein. So it becomes imperative for the people who want to use it and to leverage it and to help those around them. And I think this is where the education portion becomes very important. Educating yourself so that you can educate others on what they've built. Because some people create things in very much of a siloed environment. And for mass adoption of anything, it has to be well received. And just because you think it's a great idea in your head, it's like, yeah, that's great. Nobody wants that. And that's hard to tell people when they're building some of these platforms. It's like, yep, it's great, but how are you disseminating that information? You don't know how to do that. And that's where we come in.
True.
Where you're seeing the individuals who don't know how to talk to their potential customers because they're not interested in their customer, they're interested in creating the actual software and the infrastructure. So now for someone to use it, they're going to have a translator. They're going to have that customer experience persons to help them through that transition. And we fit into all of those across the board. And I think that's where I would only have like basically a big border kind of running through that is the educators and the individuals who are the true end users, people who truly understand things and can position that and tell them like, yeah, that's good, but that's not exactly what we want, or this is how you need to disseminate that information as appropriately as possible.
Yeah. I think, so one of the things you mentioned, Talisa, you kind of, you said it, but I just want to reinforce it. And it's about the ease of use of any technology. If a technology is not easy to use, or if people don't feel like they can master it, there'll never be mass adoption. So one of the things that BBC and more importantly, BCI or Blockchain Consortium International is focused on is, you know, how do we explain the technology and explain how to use it in an easy, you know, manner so that mass adoption can happen within the industry. And, you know, there was a conversation in Zoom here about Blockbuster. You know, one of the things that happened with Blockbuster is they, you know, the innovators, meaning the people that wanted streaming services, started leaving, right, to go to streaming services, and the early adopters left. And by the time Blockbuster realized it, they pulled their head out of the sand. The late adopters were starting to get into the industry. Yeah. Whereas, you know, they may have said, oh, you know, the streaming thing looks like it's catching fire. If they had caught it at the beginning of the early adopter season, they may have been able to, and this goes back to my ease of use, they may have been able to take all of those people that were coming into Blockbuster, all of those late adopters and laggards, and say, here, let me set you up, you know, in your home with the Blockbuster streaming services. That way you don't have to come into Blockbuster. Imagine if that had happened, you know? So
yeah, but simply imagine when Netflix came to them and asked them to buy them, that they would have purchased them. They had the ability to actually purchase Netflix, but they chose not to. And that's what happened.
And they had the traffic. They had the traffic at the time. So this goes back to what you were saying about teaching people, you know, teaching the laggards and teaching the late adopters. It is about being in a position to bring those two groups, the second half of the bell curve, into that new technology, and whomever can do that wins. That's why Amazon is a winner, you know?
Yes.
That's why Netflix, you know, let's be real, that's why they're winners, at least right now. Yeah, but and you know, and let me just say, you know, one of the things too is, you know, like a lot of human beings are just resistant to change, and many times they may take this as being a fad. It's not a fad, folks. I mean, you know, you look at it. I mean, like, why didn't Kodak create Instagram? Like, I mean, they could have done that. Like, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, they completely dismissed the whole digital camera, like innovation, like, oh, whatever, that's okay, no, that's that thing happening over there. We're not gonna. And then they're like, oh my gosh, now look what happened.
And then they tried to create a cryptocurrency, but it was inauthentic.
Yeah,
It
it was a
didn't go with their
big
brand.
joke. Yeah, it was just a cash grab. It was a big joke, So, one of the things that happened, I mean, which is why I like our group and the way that our group is able to operate in a very nimble manner, is that when we do have changes happen, we are able to acclimate ourselves and, to those changes rather than, being like a massive battleship in the middle of the ocean that just can't turn on a dime like a speedboat would. To me, that's what I think it is. I mean, just to be even frank, if you just look at even cryptocurrency investing itself, man, that thing has changed dramatically in a year and a half, 2 years now, where now we see this, real migration, only to Bitcoin and maybe, some to Ethereum. Whereas before, 2016, 2017, people are throwing money at all of these ICOs, whatever coin, doesn't matter what's going on with white people. Oh yeah, go. You're raising, tens of millions of dollars for something that doesn't even exist. There's no product there.
And now they can't do it at all. The SEC got in there. So
yeah, that's completely shut it down.
Yeah, shut people down. So
yeah.
So I know that Talisha has an 8:30, so I want to give her a chance to say any final comments before you have to leave, Talisha.
Oh, I would just say, I think this is a very important part of the failure loop, in the sense that we have to redefine what that means for all of us, because I think we, particularly as a group of people, always think we can only get into something if it's going to catch fire. I think we have to learn to be much more malleable and understand where we fit. And that's I think the due diligence portion of knowing what you're getting into and knowing where it can go. And like I said, not to be fearful if the thing doesn't actually work out the way you want. You never know where it's going. So most of us got into this for a whole host of reasons and didn't even know what Bitcoin or blockchain was. And now we're here at this point defining for ourselves what kind of projects we want. So again, I think sometimes it takes a little bit of deliberation, as well as just consistency and being in the same space, not so much looking. And I think this goes back to what we're teaching people. It's like, learn about your skill acquisition rather than a position or a title. Look for a project that's going to be just something. It shows you some things of where you want to be, rather than this is going to be the next big hit. We're not recreating Facebook. Keep that in mind. That we're not, everybody wants to be a unicorn. There are people making millions of dollars. And like I said, teaching people how to back up their iPhones every day.
Absolutely.
That's the point. And that's
with less stress too.
Exactly. Yeah. You want your phone fixed, on the, coming to the kiosk. I know I sit there and watch those people every day at the mall, and I'm like, all you do is literally punch the little thing on the kiosk and they give you a new phone, a little glass case. It's like, wow. Okay. And you spent $49 to do that. Exactly. So there's a whole lot of different, I think there's avenues by which we need to be creative and craft ourselves into those positions through due diligence, steadfastness, and just being willing to understand that, yes, while it may not work exactly the way you think it is, it's not a failure, it's a lesson.
Absolutely. Amen, Pastor Talisha.
That's right.
But you're absolutely right about one thing. So most of I write business plans for a living. All sorts of companies. And the most profitable companies I see are the small ones that have a niche and have a couple of people working with them. And then they've got their core people that come back over and over again for that specific service. So one of our missions within BBC is to think about different blockchain businesses that you can start. And Talisha's absolutely right. Finding a service that you can nail and get a couple of people and you teach them how to do the same thing. And, and it's something that the late adopters and the laggards are going to need. And you literally market that thing until the wheels fall off. And then you take some of your money and you put it into real estate. You get some rental properties, some, trucks or things like that give you that consistent cash flow. That's how you can retire in 20 years, All of this, so I'm gonna become a unicorn and sell my company for $38 billion. Not necessary. Not necessary. So, and this conversation actually took a turn that I didn't even think about, because when I first started putting all this together, what you're saying and what I just said didn't even occur to me. But that is part of the lesson of this. So, Eric, do you have final comments before I give my final announcements?
No, it's something that I kind of repeatedly say on these calls is that, first of all, for the, 14, 15, 17 people who have attended and those who are watching on Facebook, you are on the cutting edge of a transformative technological, revolution. So it's just great to be here with everyone sharing and doing this together. I say this all the time. I want everyone's involvement, so we can really exercise collective genius in attacking big problems that we see in the world. And yeah, that's it. I'm just really happy to have everyone and always to be here.
Well, I want to thank all of you for being here this evening. Talisha just gave me a great idea for an internal BBC call that we're going to have, which are going to be blockchain business ideas that we can come up with. Things that are simple to start, but that can make a lot of money over the next decade. So I'm going to set that up. I'm not sure what date it's going to be. It'll probably be a Monday around 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, maybe in the next couple of weeks. But stay tuned for that. If you are not a BBC member and you want to hear that, now would be the time to join BBC. Go to blackblockchainconsultants.com, click on membership. It's $100 a year. I think it's worth it because we have a lot of these internal discussions and it really does help you stay ahead of the curve. Also, our YouTube channel, I'm looking for more subscribers for our YouTube channel. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel if YouTube is your thing. And then the final thing, next week's topic, super excited. I saw an article and it's called, Could Blockchain Mortgages Help the Impending Recession? The blockchain mortgages help the impending recession. So that is going to be our topic next Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Again, if you need me, I'm at info@blackblockchainconsultants.com. Thank you so much to everybody who took your time this evening to be a part of our conversation. Have a good evening, everybody.
You too. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.